everybody to our co-presented speaker series tonight. I'm Brenda Slocum with Friends of Gold Butte, and this is my friend Denise Houston, who is the coordinator of the Virgin River Coalition. Say hi, Denise.
Hello, thank you so much for being here tonight at the speaker series, and I'm so excited about our presentation tonight.
So with that, I'm going to introduce our speaker this evening. He is Matt Flores. Matt is with the Nevada Division of Wildlife, and he is their head herpetologist. Is that right, Matt?
No, I am just a general wildlife biologist. I am not a herpetologist, but I can moonlight as one. All right, thank you all for joining me and hearing me talk about snakes. I love snakes. They're great. They got no legs, so that's pretty cool in my opinion, and they're just fascinating creatures. And also Gold Butte is a really cool spot, and I'm going to get to that right now. So it's surprisingly connected. You have Gold Butte sits obviously right here, and it sits right adjacent to the Colorado Plateau, the Mojave Desert, the Great Basin Desert, and it also has some odd high elevation stuff as well. And it has a fantastic gradient of elevation, a fantastic amount of different habitat types and soil types as well. And it is also got these really cool rivers, the Colorado, the Virgin, and the Muddy, that kind of all have this confluence right near there as well. So what happened back in the last ice age is that the big old glaciers moved in. It got a lot colder. We were in the Pleistocene. The Nevada's landscape was quite different, but because of the elevational gradients and the mountain ranges within Nevada, Nevada was able to function as a climate refugia for a lot of species. And that's why we have some pretty dang good diversity here in Southern Nevada in terms of herps and snakes as well. So another thing is that Gold Butte's also isolated at the same time that it's connected. It's bounded by mountains and rivers naturally. Then we built a big old dam and made Lake Mead and made that river even more of a boundary. We also put in I-15 on one side of Gold Butte, and that was a barrier to travel. Potentially, we humans do funny things like introduce weeds and move species around and do all kinds of stuff that changes the environment. So Gold Butte is changing as well. Looking at what our site records say we have out there, as we have, and this is to be taken with an asterisk because this is based on site records, and I'll get to that today. We have 14 species of snakes, we have 17 species of lizards, and we have one tortoise. And if you extend Gold Butte out to the aquatic environment, we have one invasive species of turtle and also possibly an invasive species of lizard. But there's also a chance for other things that we just don't know about to be inhabiting Gold Butte. And I think that's one of the things that's so fascinating about reptiles in general, is that they're cryptic. And when you see one, it is an event. So I'm going to go over what we know of and some things that we kind of speculate of. The area is somewhat poorly surveyed. Most of our data comes from the road cruising effort. Most of our data on herps comes from the road cruising effort we have, which is limited to pretty much the Gold Butte Road, and other site records that we have. What I looked through is I looked through what the records were on iNaturalist, I looked through records on Arctos, I looked through the records on NDOW to compile what we have or what we think we have out in Gold Butte, and I'll remain abiding by that list. If I miss something, I apologize. If I bring in something that's a little exotic, I also apologize. So I'm going on our site records, and the site records are also based on what we see, and reptiles just don't get out very much. They're cold-blooded. They don't need to eat all that like a warm-blooded animal would be, so they pretty much just hang out in their spot that is hidden, and they remain unobserved. So like I said, our efforts come from road cruising and then visual encounters. Observations for reptiles are almost always visual encounters. There's not really another way to sample for them that's not expensive. They're doing phenomenal things with eDNA these days, but I don't have the ability to get dry eDNA pumps and whatnot out there, and it's also expensive to analyze that data. Some reptiles are really cryptic. Gila monsters are a good example of this. They spend 90% of their life unobservable. So if you see one, you are a lucky dog. So there's a phylogeny tree of reptiles. almost all the reptiles you're going to see down in Gold Butte, with the exception of desert tortoises, are squamates. Lizards and snakes, they diverge from one another, and it was about, I don't know, I think it was about 200,000 years ago, and quite a long time ago, or 150,000 years ago. Snakes are all in the order of Serpentes. Oops, sorry. All right, crazy with the mouse. So a bit of a notification about this. Snakes have relatively variable. The colors can be variable, the patterns can be variable, and a lot of its coloration sort of depends on it's the ground and the parent material that's kind of hanging out in. If you see a snake in an area with lots of red sandstone, it's probably going to be a little more reddish than if you say a snake in a gray limestone environment, just because it's responding. They rely on their camouflage. That's why they have that such cool patterning to break up their shape. And oh, you're not seeing the screen? Oh man. Sorry, I got a chat. Are you guys seeing the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay. Is someone in the video seeing the PowerPoint? Okay. All right.
Yes.
Gary's not seeing it on Zoom. Huh. I don't know how to get around that, Gary.
I just sent it a message, Matt. to you.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. I'm just gonna continue and hope that the technical issues resolve themselves. All right. Sorry, where was I? Okay, so snake splits and lizards 170 million years ago, give or take. Snakes have been wildly successful. They've then have split and speciated a bunch. And we basically have three snake families out there. We have one member of the blind snakes that we know of. We have I think 11 members of the colubrids, and I think we have 3 that we know of, members of the vipers. So we have a fair amount of snakes. That's actually relatively diverse for this latitude. So that's something to be proud of, I guess. There's a little bit about snake anatomy. You can see this is a rattlesnake head right here, and they have this extra nostril right here, which is right below, kind of between their eye and below their nose, and that is their heat sensing pit. That's why they're called pit vipers. They also have this elongated sort of their venom glands, which are housed behind their modified salivary glands are behind their head, and those guys gives them sort of like looking like they have a neck. But some snakes kind of like to mimic that. Normally, this is the head of a colubrid. That's the non-venomous ones we have out there, and they just have the nostril. But you'll notice that they have a lot more larger scales on their heads than the vipers do. They also have a round pupil as opposed to that cat's eye looking thing, the elliptical pupil. And we'll use that to sort of tell the difference apart. I want to first, before we get into it, don't approach any of these guys directly. You do not want to get bit by a snake if you can help it. Why I'm not going to give a bad rap. Every snake I've met has always been a complete sweetheart or a gentleman, and has never been overly aggressive. They do not charge after you to try and attack you. They're all just hoping you leave them alone, because they see you as a potential predator or something that's going to whack them with a rake, and they don't want that. So they're going to usually rely on their camouflage, and then try to slowly hope that you don't notice them, and they'll slither away. All right, so colubrids is the largest snake family. It has globally 249 genera. That changes from time to time. So by the time I finish this presentation, it may be 250 or 248. They were sort of everything was thrown in there for at one point or another. It just is what it was. If you look at the skull, you'll notice that they don't have long pronounced fangs the way vipers would. They're known as rear fanged, and I'll butcher this Latin for you, opistoglyphosis, which means they have these grooved teeth in the back of their jaw. Those teeth are designed to bite and hold prey. They don't really have venom. They may have some things that are like painkillers or something like that to aid in or something that aids in digestion, but they don't really have what we would consider venom, something that would be considered toxic to us. So they can give it a painful bite. So I would recommend not really getting within striking distance of any snake. I would recommend if you see them on the road, just kind of hang out, and they will probably shoo themselves off the road. Oops, sorry about that. They get their prey out here by overpowering them. Typical constricting fashion. They bite, hold on to them, wrap around them, and then they swallow it when it's good and dead. So these are colubrids, the most common snake family in Gold Butte. We have 10 species. They have like I said, the rear fang teeth. They're usually small. They usually lay eggs, but not always. Even though snakes are reptiles, they do something that's called oviparous, which is basically they have eggs inside them. They're internally fertilized and they give birth to live young. All right, this is probably one of the most common snakes you're going to see, in that it is out during the day, or can be out during the day. It's a really cool snake. It's a gopher snake. And they can get quite large. They can get up to almost up to 6 feet in Texas, but the ones we have are kind of more like 4 feet. They're pretty general species. They're pretty generalists. They will take whatever prey is large enough for them to go after, with pretty much whatever they can find, and they can overpower and consume. They are incredibly general with their habitats as well. They're found down in the desert all the way up into the pinyon juniper, and maybe even a little higher than that. One thing, and this guy's doing actually a pretty good job of it, is inflating his head so he gets that look of a rattlesnake head. And they will also even try to wiggle their tail a little bit, because who doesn't want to be a rattlesnake? You may have heard of them as bull snakes. That's specifically for a subspecies out of Texas. So these guys are kind of easy to identify, by their size. They're big, and they have this cool patterning on them. They have this eye stripe that's kind of right there below it, and they are a common snake. You'll see them. This is an adult, and it's much larger, but they generally, the juveniles, the neonates, don't look that much different than the adults. They just look like smaller versions of them. The one that looks a lot like it is a glossy snake. They can get up to 4 feet in length. I'm told. I've never seen one nearly that big. Usually they're more around 2 feet, but they can get kind of large. Usually they're more washed out than the gopher snakes are, but they have a dark stripe that extends, instead of like the gopher snake, which has 2 stripes on its head, as you can see, one that extends back, and the one that extends down. They have a stripe that extends basically across their eye down to the rear of their mouth. They're also really, their scales are really fine, hence the term glossy, I guess. And we've seen these guys out on the road. I've seen them occasionally. They are definitely out there. They eat pretty much the same thing that gopher snakes eat, and they hunt the same way. But they must not overlap too much, because they're found in similar habitats. This is a really cool one. The common king snake, also known as the California king snake. It has this really cool black and white pattern that's somewhat distinctive. Not fully. Sometimes little baby ones can get a little bit of a reddish stripe that kind of makes them look like a coral snake. That whole Ryan red and yellow kill a fellow, they'll have that, but it'll be a baby one, and it'll be much more faint than a coral snake would be. And we don't have coral snakes that we know of in Gold Butte. They'll also be active during the day or night, and they are one of the ones that gives birth to live young, and they can get relatively big, about 4 feet. They are exemplary constrictors. They're big, strong snakes. They eat whatever they can get their mouth around and swallow. And that includes other snakes. They're kind of famous for that, but I think the majority of what they eat is mostly going to be mammals and smaller reptiles like lizards. And again, we've seen these on the road, and they're confirmed within Gold Butte. This is a coach whip, also sometimes known as a red racer. It is a very skinny snake. It is incredibly fast. If you see it, it's on the move, it'll probably be gone, and that's what you'll see, is this thing just zooming off into the bushes. They can get pretty large, up to 6 feet, and they can do this really cool thing where they kind of stand up and kind of, I guess, observe their surroundings kind of from a little bit of a higher vantage point. They eat smaller animals. They're a much thinner bodied snake, so that sort of limits them the size of what prey they can take. But they're identified by usually by their reddish color, but again, that can be somewhat variable. I've seen these guys be a lot more gray than this specific individual. And I've seen them kind of have these maybe some faint coloration as well, but mostly they're generally one uniform color, except for their underside, sorry. And this is the striped whip snake, which is very similar to the coral snake. It is a diurnal snake, so it can also be seen in the day, although I don't think I've ever seen one during the day. It's a very slender, fast-moving snake, and it occurs throughout a variety of habitats, including the open desert and riparian areas. It can get up to 6 feet long, and it has these longitudinal stripes that are usually punctuated by scales, as you can see on this individual has. Sort of these white stripes on a darker black background. It's also called a yellow-bellied gopher snake, and sorry, I'm checking chats. And it has a pale colored belly, but I don't want you to try and grab it and flip it over. So this is a lyre snake. It's called that because it has this sort of, I guess it looks like a lyre musical instrument on the top of its head. See these, this patterning on the top of its head that I guess looks like a lyre. I don't really know what a lyre looks like, to be honest. So I'm going to take whoever named this snake's word for it. It's a V-shaped pattern. It's a little bit of a smaller snake. It's about 2 feet long. It is purely nocturnal, so it is going to be seen out on roads potentially, or out in the desert environment, usually before it gets too cold at night, or in the morning times. They tend to come back out. They eat, again, they're relatively general, and they eat whatever they can get their mouth around and overpower. So long-nosed snake, again, something that we've confirmed through Gold Butte site records. So it has this sort of distinctive upturned nose, and it is it's kind of variable in its patterning. I've never seen one this distinctively patterned within Nevada. They tend to be more of a grayish, at least that's what I've seen. Maybe out in a redder part of the world, out in the sandstone areas of Gold Butte, they might get a little more red. But they, again, like I said, these snakes can be variable in their coloration. And then that is dependent, again, on the environment they're in. So if you see one in a red area, it's going to have more reddish, or may have more reddish on them. And if you see one in where the rocks are darker, it'll be more darker. And similar, because it's just selective. That's from selective pressure of camouflage either working or not. This guy, again, relatively general, eats whatever can overpower. That's kind of a trait across the board for colubrids. As a western patch nose snake, it gets its name from this distinct nose scale it's got, the rostral scale, if you want to be a smarty pants. And it kind of uses that for digging and probing the earth. It has this dorsal stripe on the back. It is relatively distinct, but some of the snakes can have dorsal stripes. Can be more yellow or black. Again, there are different morphs that can be found. This one likes to eat pretty much everything it can get its mouth around and overpower. All snakes, as far as I know, most snakes will love to eat eggs and bird eggs, small rodents, whatever they can overpower and keep down. Oops, sorry, going a little too fast. All right, so the desert night snake, obviously nocturnal, based on its name. It has this cool eyes. I mean, it's got these really cool looking eyes. They're called bug-eyed, I guess. It's got this cool patterning. It can be somewhat variable. I've seen them where the stripes are more so like larger and less contiguous than this guy. But it has this dark on the back of its neck, this dark patch behind its head, and that's distinctive on it. Again, they're found throughout the desert. That desert scrub up to the mid elevations. We've got them along Gold Butte Road, which is where most of this data is actually coming from. All right, this is a really cool one. This is the Sonoran Mountain King snake. It has a very distinctive red, black, and yellow markings. It can look like a coral snake, except it is red and black, hence the rest of that rhyme I said earlier, red and black, venom lack. This one is a little more distinctive in its habitat types. It likes to be up at higher elevations. And we know this from a single site or a single collection record that was in the Virgin Mountains, which indicates that it's there, and we haven't really looked aggressively for it. But It may be a one-off. That is entirely a possibility. I think it's there. The habitat suggests it's there. The the fact that someone found one definitely suggests it's there. These are more up in the Great Basin and up in the mountain ranges over that way, but they are ranging down to Gold Butte, and it's the only record we have from Southern Nevada, which is, I think, pretty cool, and is one of the reasons why Gold Butte is so unique. And these guys can get relatively large. They can grow about 3 feet long, and they're a typical constrictor, but a really pretty one. This is a Western ground snake, and now I'm going to go into the snakes that we suspect would be in Gold Butte, but I don't have a site record from them. There's no reason to believe this wouldn't be there, but maybe it's not. It could be the edge of its range. Now, this is also called a variable ground snake because these two images are the same species. They can be quite variable in their coloration. They can either have these bands of red and black, or cream and black, or brownish and cream, or they can have no bands and have a faint dorsal stripe on it, like this other individual right next to that one does. What they do have is what's called a loreal scale, which is right kind of adjacent to its eye scales between its nose scales. So that's a giveaway, but it's not something I really want you guys to get too close to making an identification. If it looks like this, it's a Western ground snake. All right, and this is a Mojave shovelnose snake. This is another one we don't exactly have a site record of in Gold Butte, but again, there's no reason to believe it's not there. But maybe it's not. This is the one that likes to burrow underground. That's why they have these shovel type heads. A lot of snakes have this shovel type heads for burrowing and moving stuff around. That's how you got to dig if you don't have legs or arms. It's really found in loose soil, and the fact that Gold Butte has a whole bunch of sand, to me, indicates it's probably there. But again, haven't found it yet. And it usually eats arthropods, and they're small-bodied animals. I imagine it could probably take a rodent if it wanted to, but it's a relatively small snake. So, and this is the range of the reptiles. So if you see, this is the range of that snake we were just looking at, the Mojave ground snake. And the red is the one we have here. And you can see the range map kind of goes and just omits Gold Butte slightly. It could be here, but we haven't seen it yet, so we have no reason to believe it's not here. Range maps are useful, but they're not always accurate. They're based on site records. They're based on other things, and they're not always accurate. I would say that snakes could definitely exist outside of those predicted ranges. All right, now we're moving on to the blind snake family, which I'm just not going to try because I'm going to totally butcher that Latin. We have a single species in Gold Butte. However, it is along Gold Butte Road is one of the few places in Nevada we actually have a fair amount of site records for these guys. As you can see, this guy's got a really weird head. That's its eye right there, that little black dot, and it has a really blunt, enlarged rostral scale, nose scale that hangs over its mouth and that it uses for digging. These guys are not seen, observed very commonly because they spend almost all their life underground. They're what we call fossorial. They swim through the sand, hang out in this underground, and eat whatever they've come across, and they don't come out a lot. There's a reason why it looks like an earthworm, because it has a very similar habit to an earthworm. So it probably eats whatever it could find under there, and they're not very large. So again, it's more difficult to observe a small snake than it is to be a large snake, and also more difficult to observe a snake that's underground than one that you can actually see. So there's a better picture of it right there. It has, it's not very big, it's relatively small. It needs loose soil. So sandy areas is probably where it's going to be, hence in Gold Butte, where we have a lot of sand. And it's going to be where it hangs out at, is going to be where its prey is. A lot of these snakes kind of exist relatively close to carrying capacity, which is more or less habitat and prey dependent. So they're going to exist where the prey is and where the habitat is. All right, now let's get to my favorite family, the pit vipers. As you can see, the big difference is they have these massive retractable fangs that are a venom delivery system. The fangs are grooved. They have this hole in there, and they work like hypodermic needles that they inject into your into their prey's skin, and that venom is specifically to incapacitate its prey and make it easy to digest. It contains digestives. Usually these snakes, at least the ones we have out here, contain hemotoxins, which will break down the blood and make the tissue easier to digest. They also have there's one that has a cytotoxin, that's the Mojave green, or sorry, the Mojave rattlesnake. There's no such thing as Mojave greens. And that has a cytotoxin, so that's a little bit different. That's for believed to be a evolution to consuming reptiles for prey. So another thing they have is these heat sensing pits. So they see, I guess, how the predator sees in that Arnold Schwarzenegger movie from the 80s. They can see heat and they can sort of, I guess, sense it. I don't know exactly what it looks like. It's probably not like an infrared camera like that, but they can observe the heat coming off their prey, which is predominantly mammalian. However, they also will eat reptiles and whatever they can get. All three species are rattlesnakes, which is in the genus Crotalus, and all of them are venomous, and all of them are nocturnal. So again, snake anatomy. This is going back to that slide you saw earlier. This is a rattlesnake head, heat-sensing pit, and that the salivary glands, and it will have a rattle in its tail as compared to a constrictor or a colubrid or something else that has a rounder pupil and doesn't have that really a neck. All right, so this is the speckled rattlesnake. It used to be one species with the Panamint rattlesnake, but they got split, and that was relatively recently, just suggesting how little we actually know about these guys. They are one of the more variable rattlesnakes we have. I've seen them be orange, I've seen them be almost black and white. They usually have what's called a faded coloration, and but if you look at rattlesnakes, one of the keys to identifying them is to look at their tail near their rattle, and they have these narrow black rings near their tail. Several other species will also have that, but these guys have narrow ones and they're more distinctive. They also have their scales on their head. I don't really like getting too close to them to really observe this too easily, but they have the scales above their eyes called the supraocular scales, and 4 scales adjacent to their rostral or nose scale, which would be a nose if they had one, and it's separating their prehensile or prenasal nostril scales. So they have a series of different scales on there. This is venomous. Again, keep at least 3 feet. These are beautiful creatures. They deserve to live. Don't harm them. Those snakes are no danger to you unless you try to handle them. I mean, something like 80% of all rattlesnake bites occur on people's hands. Should tell you what they were trying to do to that rattlesnake. They were trying to nab it. So they don't want to bite you. You're not a prey, and if you don't act like a predator, they will not bite you. They'll rely on their camouflage, and they 99 times out of 100 will be complete gentlemen and ladies and leave you alone. All right, this is the famous Mojave rattlesnake, not the Mojave green. There's no such thing as Mojave greens, although they can be kind of greenish, which is why they get that nickname. They are a heavy-bodied rattlesnake. They can get pretty large. I've never seen one of more than 3 feet. I don't know where the 4 feet comes from, but this is in Texas, so they also have kind of a narrow black and white stripes on the tail, but it is similar to speckled. The bands are much narrower. The identification, if you look at the head, they have these large scales on top of their head, hence their scientific name, Scutalis. So they basically have these 4 scales on the top of their head that are very large. The supraocular scales almost touch, and the rostral scales will touch. There's a lot of misinformation about rattlesnakes, especially about this species, because its venom is relatively toxic compared to other North American snakes. But again, he's not going to bite you. So don't be, unless you give it a reason to, unless you get within that 3-foot radius. Snakes can't strike longer than their body. They can't jump. They can't spit their venom. They will strike about 2/3 of their body, maybe, if they're in a really good shape and give a really aggressive strike. But again, I don't want you to touch these guys. So be safe out there, especially if you're observing these guys in their natural habitat. This is the Sidewinder, which is another really cool rattlesnake. I like it because it's easy to identify by these horns it's got, these overdeveloped supraocular scales, which gives it the horned rattlesnake. It's sometimes called. They would really like sandy habitats, and if you get a chance to see one doing that cool sidewinding thing it does, where it actually moves sideways and sort of swims across the sand. It's really, really, it's just poetry in motion. It's super cool stuff. So the real dead giveaway is the super aqua scales, but they usually are pretty faded and don't have a lot of patterning. As you can see from the tail, they don't have that aggressive black and white striping. And they can be relatively common in sandy areas, where they just seem to have an advantage over other snakes. And then this is what we know about. That is the snakes we know about. So and all these site records come from our ability to observe these things, which are somewhat limited because they're so cryptic. I mean, I have here pictures of other snakes that potentially could exist out there. We just haven't seen them yet. It's a Smith's blackhead snake. It's a relatively rare one, but it does occur in isolated populations across southern Nevada and up into northern Nevada. So there's potential it could occur. We just haven't seen it yet. This is a regal ringneck snake. Another thing that's really patchy distribution. Could potentially exist in the Virgin Mountains, but again, we haven't been able to find one yet, but that doesn't mean it's not there. One of the problems with some of the data we have at NDOW is we, for a long time, are getting data from commercial collection, which has since been discontinued. And that data is somewhat flawed in that whoever was recording that snake picked it up and took it. So it's deleterious. Now, is that snake still there? I don't know. Was that the only one? It's possible. So it's not complete, and other weird stuff could occur. Oh, sorry, one more thing. I mean, we could potentially have Great Basin rattlesnakes that could venture down here. I mean, we're right on the edge of their range. We potentially could have Grand Canyon rattlesnakes. I think that's more unlikely, but there's potential for that to happen. I think Arctos had a record of an eastern pine snake, which I am doubtful of. So even sometimes the data we have is somewhat flawed or suspect, and I can only really say what we know is out there based on solid site records, but that's not to say there aren't more snakes out there and potentially other stuff as well that we just have not observed yet. So we're always looking for volunteers, and if you're road crews out for NDOW, I tip the cap to you. You are collecting this data, and you are getting the site records so that I can report on snakes that we actually know about. Take a picture of this website if you want to get involved, and we have other opportunities if road cruising isn't your jam. Saturday, I'm planting plants out with volunteers, so we have lots of opportunities. So I'm going to give that quick plug, and thank you all I got a bunch of volunteers providing me with the data and the photos. So I want to thank you all a ton for providing me the ability to use those photos. And yeah, and I'll take some questions if I got time. Jim Lane asks, do roadrunners go after snakes? Absolutely. Avian predators are love snakes. Raptors, red tails will take snakes. Roadrunners will take snakes. They absolutely will. I don't think that a roadrunner is going to take like a very large snake. I think once they get past a certain size, they're probably safe, just because they're big. But yeah, absolutely, a roadrunner will take a snake. One of the reasons why snakes are so cryptic is because they're just not that good at defending themselves. I mean, if birds are really quick, mammals are really quick, reptiles are only quick across that short distance. They're quick. So they're always in fear of getting chowed down. If you look at, there was a study done about humans' ability to identify snakes, and they actually found out people have the ability to identify snakes quite readily, even with their camouflage, indicating that there was an evolutionary advantage to humans identifying snakes. Probably because snakes are delicious and could a really easy, quick source of protein that a proto-human could probably bop with a stick and take home and feed two people. So snakes definitely are prey. All right, king snakes immune to rattlesnake venom. Jim asked another question. They're resistant. I don't know about 100% immune. They eat rattlesnakes, so I would assume they have some resistance. Reptiles have venom resistance, it seems. They're just tough. They're tough guys. So probably some resistance. But again, it's an arms race. If as soon as something develops resistance, the snake's going to get more aggressive venom. That's one of the reasons why the Mojave rattlesnakes possibly have such aggressive venom and have that cytotoxin is probably a response to predating on other reptiles.
Hey, Matt, can you hear us now?
Yes, I can hear you.
We have a question.
Hi, Matt. Luckily, I've seen a few snakes, but my question is, they've always told me they were there, so I'm far less afraid than I was 15 years ago. So my question is, I only can identify one, and it's the sidewinder. It's very prominent. How do I get
Mhm.
better about identifying the other species? Thanks.
Okay, I would just look at, I would pick up a field guide and just start looking at it. That's the easiest way to do it. You can look at pictures online. Is another great way to do it. There's lots of photos available online. Or you can just get out on road cruise and be wrong a couple of times until you start getting the hang for it. But they do have some, it's not like a dichotomous key, and snakes are more variable than say birds are, which gives us kind of a bigger challenge to identify these things. But like for to recognize the key characteristics would be something to do. For example, those rattlesnake, the Mojave rattlesnake has those much larger ocular scales. They're not as prominent as sidewinders, but they're much larger, and then the rostral scales touch. I'm envious of people who can just look at a snake and be like, that's this, that's rattle off. I still use the guide when I get one, when I see one out in nature. But I would recommend just reading those guides, get familiar with the snakes in your area, and then go out and take a look for them and see if you can identify some.
Hi, Matt. I had another question.
Of course.
Do the snakes in our area have the ability to swim, like maybe get across the Virgin River or anything like that?
Snakes are excellent swimmers. They absolutely do. Some snakes are aquatic. We don't really have, in Southern Nevada, we don't really have a bunch of what I would consider aquatic snakes. However, we have popular terrestrial garter snakes down in Las Vegas Wash that probably was released there. And those are aquatic, and almost all snakes can swim. I don't know if you drop one in the water, if it would just sink. I don't think so. So they all can swim, and they can absolutely cross the Colorado River before it was dammed, and probably even now that it is dammed. Lake Mead isn't a definitive barrier to them. It's probably less of a barrier than I-15 is, honestly. All right, another question, Jim. Hey, what's up, San Francisco? All right. Do Panamint pit vipers live in Gold Butte? It is a speckled species. No, they do not. There's a possibility that there could be hybrids, but as far as we believe, Las Vegas Valley is the dividing line between those two species. So if you are north of 15 and west of 15, that was, I guess I'm just putting a dividing line on it that's somewhat probably more or less arbitrary, but that's something that we can relate to. So no, we don't, as far as I know, have speckled Panamint rattlesnakes within Gold Butte. They should be all speckled.
Hey, Matt, this is Mike.
How you doing?
Couple questions for you. You talked about the snakes eating mammals. What are the most common kind of mammals that you see out in Gold Butte that the snakes would eat?
That would be any small mammal. Kangaroo mice, especially Miriam's kangaroo mice, are really general and quite populous in the landscape, and that's good snake food. Then again, even some deer mice, that's snake food. Pretty much any small mammal they can get. I mean, even a baby rabbit for a larger one, possibly even a very large gopher snake might be able to take a small cottontail even. They'll take whatever they can swallow and overpower. So anything pretty much that is small enough for them to eat, there is potential prey for them.
One more question. I saw a snake about a year ago. It was about a foot long, and it was like albino white snake. It wasn't in Gold Butte, but it was in some of our trails here in Mesquite. What would that be? Any idea?
All white. I mean, there's albino snakes out there. Like usually they're not all white. That could be maybe a California king, I guess. That's just lacking in that pigmentation. They call them morphs. And
Got
if
pictures,
you,
I'll send them to
oh,
you.
I'm sorry.
I've got pictures, I'll send them to you.
Okay, absolutely.
It's about 3 feet long and we saw them close by, but I can send you a picture of it.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, there could be albinos. There's even, they do something called it's like pied that they'll be half white, and I mean there's some weird morphs out there that do exist. Jim asks, would scorpions be on the menu? Yeah, arthropods are definitely on the menu, especially for some of those smaller snakes. They would absolutely, especially when they're little babies, little young ones, that they're absolutely arthropods are on the menu.
Hey, Matt, I had a question. I thought I heard you mention commercial collection at Gold Butte.
Mm-hmm.
There's a history of that. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, gladly. So
And whatnot?
absolutely. So until 2018, Nevada allowed commercial collection with a license from the state. Basically, that allows someone to basically pick up a snake, naturally occurring wild species, and then sell it on a legal market. That no longer exists, but we did get, those were people who did commercial collection. They were required to report what they caught and where they caught it. So we got a lot of data from those guys from a lot of years. And a lot of our occurrence data is sadly from the commercial collection of reptiles. This commercial collection has been outlawed since 2018. Nevada was a holdout. And that is where it's a data set, but it is also a data set that is specific to commercial collection. It's not the same as I saw that snake and I left in the environment. This is, I saw that snake, I picked it up and I took it. So that's a different kind of data. That's a different data set. So I'm just going to leave the flaws right there. I will say though that there wasn't a ton of commercial collection going on in Gold Butte. A lot of it centered in other portions of the state, probably because Gold Butte is just a long drive. Okay, Roxana, outside of Gold Butte area, are you familiar with what type of snakes, especially in the Spring Mountains, especially Red Rock Canyon? Yeah, sure. Red Rock's got some cool stuff. We have records of Smith's black-headed up there that I spoke about earlier. You're going to see Panamint rattlesnakes there instead of speckled. But a lot of the snakes are going to overlap because the habitat's relatively the same and relatively similar. We're not going to have Snowy Mountain Kings in Red Rock. That would be a huge event if we saw them. There's potential that they could occur in the Spring Mountains, but we've never seen them. So we have no reason to believe they're there. Another thing, yeah, we have some other snakes, but more or less the snakes in Gold Butte, with the exception of the Panamint versus speckled, are going to be similar. All right, Jim, would all these rains past summer about a bumper crop of rodents and more vegetation for our snaky friends? Yeah, absolutely. Snakes, they occur more or less at carrying capacity, and they I know that the kangaroo rats and the small mammals are surprisingly fecund, and any rainfall event, more seeds, they're going to boom. And that means more snakes are going to survive into adulthood. So we'll get a bump in snakes. Absolutely.
Where would one find the antitoxin, and how quickly or how do people treat a snake bite before they get the antitoxin?
Okay, so antitoxin, antivenom is derived from there's two different types. I'm not going to go too aggressively into it right now. The best anti-venom is to not get bitten. That's the best kind of anti-venom I could think of. But there is antivenom, and you would probably be taken to a hospital and they could potentially administer that. I don't have a list on the top of my head of what hospitals around the valley would have that. I'm hoping that your doctor would know, because they're not going to call me if you're bitten by a snake. Antivenom is kind of a last ditch effort. You're still going to be kind of messed up even if you got antivenom. It's not like all of a sudden, hey, I'm better. No, you're still reeling from that toxicity and that toxic event. It just is going to make it so that you don't die from it. I will say that a lot of our rattlesnakes, they don't have venom that is designed to take out an animal that is over 100 pounds, like most people are. So you will have a bad time if you get bitten, and if you have an allergic reaction or something, you're gonna have a really bad time. It's gonna be life-threatening. But for the most part, if you get bitten, go to a hospital, and they'll take care of you.
Matt, thank you very much for presenting this tonight. We really appreciate it. Did a great.
Thank you. Please, if you need more speakers, I can send other biologists. We got knowledgeable, friendly people.
Cool. All right. Thank you so much.
All
Appreciate
right,
it.
thank you. And you guys have a good night. And yeah, if you're interested in volunteering, please let me know. Hey, Jim Boone, thanks for sharing knowledge about snakes. I'm not teaching you anything new, buddy. Jim Boone, I'm gonna give him a shout out. He runs a fantastic website that can help you identify snakes for that question, birdandhike.com. So thank you very much for letting me waste about almost an hour of your time, and hope you guys out there and see some snakes and have fun.